broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this Specialist Trading educational presentation. Now today I'd like to talk to you about next level pullback trading. I've said this before in other webinars. There are actually only two styles of trading, and these are the major styles and categories that all traders fall under in terms of how they trade. One of them is continuation trading. That's where you look for a trend to be established and you just buy as it's continuing along that direction. For example, if a market goes up, you just continue to buy all the way up. Or if you're a seller, as the market goes lower and lower, you just continue to sell short as it goes down. Not very difficult. You just have to be right, as with all trading. Now, the other category is pullback trading. That's a little bit more difficult, but this is also a major way in which traders trade. So let me give you the standard definition of what pullback really means. Here's the pullback definition. In an overall uptrend, when the market is going up, whatever time frame, whatever market you're looking at, a pullback is simply a large, moderate, or a shallow sell-off. That's all it is. So as we look here in this older chart of letter A, obviously in hindsight, the overall trend is up. So what we're looking for are these large, moderate, and shallow sell-offs. This is the ideal place to buy right here at the bottom, okay? Now, conversely, in an overall downward trending market, a pullback is simply a large, moderate, or shallow rally, okay? So as we look here at this older chart of urban, obviously in hindsight, the overall trend is down. So what we're looking for are these large, moderate, or even shallow little bounces and rallies for us to take advantage of, because these are the ideal places to sell. Okay. Now the only difficulty is it's rather difficult to find out if this little bounce or this little sell-off is a pullback or if it's going to be the beginning of a new trend to the opposite direction. How many times does that happen to traders where they say, well, okay, this is just a pullback according to that $10,000, $15,000 method I bought, and it keeps going lower and lower and lower. So this lends to the question, is there a strategy specifically designed to identify these high probability pullback setups? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today, because the answer actually is yes. And we're going to share with you how simple it is to apply this strategy on our platform. We specifically designed it to make it simple so that everything is one click away. This is the educational platform that identifies these pullback strategy setups so it can make your pullback trading really simple. So welcome once again. This is what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Steven Primo, president and founder of Specialist Trading. I teamed up with Pro Trader Strategies about a dozen years ago with one goal in mind, and that was simply to educate traders around the world. So that's our goal. If you've come here today thinking I'm going to tell you what I think the market's going to do, or if the perfect time frame is a 10-minute or an hourly or a 2-hour or 4-hour, you've come to the wrong place. We don't believe in that. In fact, think of it. A good educator teaches you how to trade, but he doesn't trade for you. Now, I've been trading for 44 years now. I started my career on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. I was on the floor for 16 years. 9 of those years I was a specialist, so that's where we get the name Specialist Trading. I know a lot of people these days don't understand or know what a specialist is. It doesn't mean you're any more special than anyone else. But if you Google those old pictures of the trading floor back in the 20s and 30s, and even in the 70s and 80s when I was down there, these are usually these pictures with these guys behind these large wooden podiums were making all these weird hand signals and gesturing back and forth to other traders. Those are specialists. And the reason why they're called specialists is because they specialized in making markets, roughly in about 50 or 60 stocks. So in other words, if you wanted to buy or sell a particular stock, you would call up your stockbroker, or, now everything's online, but in those days you'd call up your stockbroker. He in turn would call the floor trader. He would take your order and then walk up to the trader who specialized in making a market in that stock. So that's how you would buy or sell. And I did that roughly for 9 years. I made markets during the crash of 1987 and the bull market that followed. So as I always say, I have seen and traded just about everything under the sun, anything you can imagine, any market environment you can imagine, straight up, straight down, sideways, crashes, bull markets like we're seeing. So in my 44 years of trading, I know what works in terms of consistency and I know what doesn't. So there's no need to go around searching for the Holy Grail, spending tens, if not 20, 30, $40,000 away, many traders do, searching for that perfect system, when we can tell you through our experience what really works in terms of consistency and what doesn't. That's why we formulated Specialist Trading. I teamed up with Pro Trader Strategies, once again with one goal, to teach traders around the world how to trade. And you're going to see that today in helping you understand how to actually trade pullback scenarios. Now, before we begin, once again, as always, we're required by law to share this with you, so please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to share with you a lot of performance results today, a lot of current charts, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. Also, please remember that all examples, since we are an educational company, all examples I'm about to share with you are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, we have a lot of students attending, as I can see some listed names, but we also have a lot of new people here. So if you're interested in getting some more free education on a daily basis, I invite each and every one of you to follow us on Twitter. There's our handle right there. Lots of great free education on a daily basis. I'll post signals that our strategies have generated and give you a little bit of background why they were generated. I'll also give you a lot of free wisdom, financial wisdom, things I've accumulated along the way to help you better understand how to trade. So once again, daily education, please feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now remember, as I stated in the opening statements, we are different from other companies in that our only goal is simply to educate you. We're not going to tell you what we think of the market. We're not going to tell you what we think the perfect stock is, or what we think of Bitcoin, or what we think the perfect time frame is, because that's not teaching you. That's telling you what to do. And if you think of it, the majority of all these so-called educators and websites basically tell you what to buy or sell, either by going to a chat room or subscribing to their signal service or by buying their $10,000 system that automatically tells you what to buy or what to sell. I'm happy to say that even though we have strategies with signals generated, we have variable ways in which to enter, in which to exit, and which to place your stop. So ultimately, we're giving you and highlighting these high probability trades, but we're letting you decide on how to trade them. This, in my opinion, in over 44 years of trading, is the only way one becomes a consistent trader. Not by blindly following along what somebody says on TV or what they like in the market or what they don't like, but by making your own decisions. So my goal as an educator is not to trade for you, it's to teach you how to trade so you can make your own trading decisions, be in charge of your own trading destiny for the very first time. This, once again, is the only way I have found how traders become consistent, myself included. We don't have a chat room or a trading room with Specialist Trading. We don't force feed you signals on a nightly basis, tell you what to buy or sell. There's no trading rooms, chat rooms, there's no signal service, and we generate these strategies that produce signals, but we give you literally dozens of ways in which to trade them because we want you to make your own trading decision. All right, so that's our goal, to teach traders how to trade, and you'll see that attention to detail today. Now, before we begin, remember, once again, ask me as many questions as possible since this is an educational classroom, but please wait till the end, okay? I promise I'll get to each and every one of your questions at the end. A lot of students ask, is this being recorded? They have to leave earlier, or they're having technical issues on their computer? Sure. Everything we have here on our webinars is recorded for you, so we will send each and every one of you a link to this recording at the end of the presentation, okay? So we have a good group here today. Please remember to ask questions at the end. Okay, with that stated, let's begin today's educational presentation. Now, we're going to be talking about pullback, so I just want to go through the process of pullback trading, okay? We'll just look at a simple buy setup, and this is just a generic chart here. This is not an actual signal, just to show you what goes into the making of a pullback entry. What you want to find first is an established trend or the beginning of a trend, okay? Now, this is not something that we're going to be trading. We just want to see an established trend take place. And what usually happens after that is you get what's called a counter trend. Now, this is where most traders have difficulty. They'll say, oh, well, that website I went to said the trend has changed, so now I guess I shouldn't be a buyer anymore. Maybe I should look to sell short because it looks like the trend has gone down. Well, it may have. But if all the rules and requirements are in place for a pullback, this, in all actuality, is not the beginning of a trend. It is simply a pullback. A pullback is different in that it should usually stop at a certain level before the third phase jumps in, and that's the resumption of trend. Okay, so this is the standard phasing here of pullback entry. So pullback traders want to be buying somewhere right around these levels at the lower end of the pullback. And it would just be reversed if you were selling, going short. Now, this is all seems well and good. It all seems very simple to do. It's like, okay, well, after it's sold off a little bit, I guess I'll just buy here, right? But it is rather difficult because oftentimes what may appear just to be a pullback is in all actuality the beginning of a downtrend. So you don't want to be buying if it's going to continue to go straight down. So once again, this leads us to ask the question, is there a strategy specifically designed to identify these high probability pullback entries? One that won't get me in the beginning of a brand new counter trend. And the good news is, yes, there is. This is strategy number 9. This is our premier pullback method. It's extremely consistent. Let me give you some of the highlights of this method. Designed to buy low and sell high. Now, most traders would say, well, Steve, I thought you don't believe in buying low and selling high. Well, remember, we're going to be buying low in an overall uptrend, and we're going to be selling at a higher level in an overall downtrend. So we're not bucking the trend. We're just trading these pullback areas. Now, it does this by applying a proprietary indicator-based method. Now, if you followed us before, we have many strategies, many techniques. They're either usually two different styles, either a pattern recognition, which such as strategy number 4 or candlestick strategy number 5 is based off of, or an indicator base, where we're just basically using indicators to tell us where to get in and highlight the high probability areas. That's what strategy number 9 is. Now, the beauty of this is that you can apply it to any market, any time frame, in any direction. I recently I followed a webinar the other day where someone was talking about some master system, a system that hardly ever fails and it works great. And someone asked at the end, can this be applied to like Bitcoin? And they said, oh, no, this only works on stocks in this category. And I thought, well, what if someone doesn't trade that? Or what if that's too much high risk for them? It costs too much money. You see, if you have a really good method, it should be able to transfer into all markets, all time frames, and all directions. So that's the beauty of strategy number 9. Now, because we're looking to buy low and to sell high, this makes it ideal for option timing. So if you like to trade options, this is a great strategy to do that. Because once again, we know the cost of premiums these days. And if you're buying on a breakout, and let's say the stock or the future or the currency pair breaks out, well, you're going to pay a high price for that because it's going in your desired direction. But if, let's say, we're in an overall uptrend, but price begins to sell off, well, the premiums are going to begin to sell off as well, and you'll be able to purchase at lower prices. So this makes it ideal for option time. Now, with all of our methods, if you decide to become a student of mine in the strategy number 9 course, remember, we want all of our students to paper trade first. A lot of students, the minute they see this, the minute they get the course, they say, oh, wow, this is fantastic. I'm going to start trading this tomorrow. And some students actually do that, but the majority of students that do begin to lose right off the bat because they didn't fully understand the process. They didn't really study the rules, and they jump in too quickly without following and applying the rules correctly. Remember, so we want you to paper trade first if you happen to become a student of mine. Now, our edge with all of our methods and techniques is consistency. I know a lot of students think, well, that's great. That means that there's a lot of winners. No, that's not what consistency means. Consistency is an awareness that there will be losses from time to time, and that's perfectly okay. But a consistent method is one that's able to recoup those losses very soon. I'll show you a couple examples today of where you had some losses, and then the very next setup, or because of your decision based off the information we give you, you would have stayed in the trade and actually made back what initially appeared to be a loss. So it's an extremely consistent method, okay? Okay, now let's share with you some more highlights about this. Strategy number 9 employs 2 simple indicators. Remember, this is an indicator-based method. Now, their relationship to one another automatically produces the signals. So remember, we're not looking for any pattern. We're not looking for any type of support and resistance or volume or things of that nature or Fibonacci retracements. This is based on 2 simple indicators, but their relationship to one another. Remember, in an overall uptrend, buy signals will be generated during a decline. And in an overall downtrend, sell signals will be generated during a decline. So let's look at the trading process, and I want to really emphasize how simple this is. And remember, this is not a black box. We don't believe in black boxes because, as I said in the opening statement, we want to teach you so you can make your own decisions. Now, you can't very well make your own trading decision if you go to a trading room or a chat room and they tell you what to buy or what to sell, or for that matter, buy a $10,000 black box system which automatically generates signals and you have absolutely no idea what they're based on. This is really a fault of the marketing of all of the different traders around in the industry, because they really want to take you out of the process. I'm happy to say that Pro Trader Strategies and Specialist Trading focus on the opposite. We want you to be a part of the process. We want you to fully understand the rules and know why a signal has been generated, and then decide for yourself if you want to take it or not. Decide for yourself where you want to enter out of all the different variables we give you for entries. Decide yourself where you want to exit, all the different exit levels we give you, and decide for yourself how you want to protect yourself, which stop placement you want to use. So we are teaching you these high probability areas for a trade to take place, but how you actually enter and even what you decide to trade. If you want to buy the stock, if you want to buy options, if you want to trade a contract, it's entirely up to you. We're not involved in that process. Those are decisions you need to make. Remember, this is the only way in my 44 years I have found how a trader can become consistent. And by consistent, I don't mean that, oh yeah, you're going to have a good couple of months or a good year. We're looking for a good couple of decades. That's what we want you to be. A consistent trader is one that can trade for decades. We want you to be trading for the remainder of your trading career. That's our goal. Okay, so let's look back at that older chart of letter A. We're in an overall uptrend. And remember, we teach you how to identify an overall uptrend. And once you've identified where the trend is, you simply click on strategy number 9. Now, you know how to identify a signal, but we use this in order for you to check your work. So in the drop-down menu, click on signal arrows to see if you properly identified, and this will check your work to see if you're in line. As you can see, look at all the buy signals that were generated right at the bottom of these moderate to large sell-offs here, okay? Now this works the same way to the downside as we looked at that older chart of Urban once again. Obviously we're in a downtrend, but we would have known well in advance that the overall trend was down. And we've spotted some what we think are sell signals. So we want to check our work. Ultimately, the goal is you won't have to check your work. You'll automatically know where they are. But just to check your work at the beginning, click on signal arrows and look at all these. We have a cluster of sell signals right here at the very top of this large rally before it went back down. Now look at these small, very shallow bounces. Sell signals were generated along the way, okay? So that's how simple the process is. It's very easy to generate these. And remember, you can decide for yourself whether you want to take them, if there's too much risk, if you want to trade options. Those are all your decisions. So let's look at some current strategy number 9 examples, okay? And once again, if you've come to my webinars, you know it's a pet peeve of mine. A lot of times I'll go to a webinar from another so-called educator, and I'll see that they're giving great examples. I'll say to myself, wow, this thing never fails. It has a winner on every one. And then I'll see that all the examples are cherry-picked, not just going back a couple of months, which is fine, but they'll go back a couple of years, maybe even 5 years. I saw one webinar where we went back 5 years and they were giving examples. And I always say to myself, if I were buying this, I don't want to see something that just worked 5 years ago. I want to see it work in the last month or two. So we're trying to show you how exactly, if we had given this webinar a couple of months, how you would have seen all these signals taking place if you had become a student of ours. And remember, everything you're going to be seeing today is displayed using our platform, the PTS Primo Charting Platform. I developed this with Pro Trader Strategies with one goal: to make trading simple. Another pet peeve of mine is because I've been around so long, I've most likely used just about every major platform you can think of. Now, I'm not going to give any names, but none of them really are simple and easy as the PTS Primo Charting Platform. I mean, it's just everything is one click away. It's designed to be really simple. And once you know what you want, it's just as easy as clicking on the strategy and clicking on a few indicators, and you know where the signals are generated. We want to keep trading simple. Trading should be simple. It shouldn't be so complicated the way I have had experiences in the past where I couldn't even load up a chart sometimes. It was just too complicated. I couldn't figure out how to do it. So we made everything as simple as possible, regardless if you've been trading 44 years like myself or if you've been trading 45 minutes. It makes no difference. Okay, so let's look at this chart in VRSN, VeriZyme. All right, here's the way most traders would trade. They'd say, okay, well, we're in an uptrend here, right? We're going straight up. But then look what happens. At this point, you got stopped out. You have a major loss. You say, you know what? I'm not going to buy this anymore. Look at it. We broke support. That guy in the trading room says this is going much, much lower, that I should look for bounces to sell. And on top of that, it was tremendously overbought. Now it's really going the opposite direction. So I say we're in a downtrend. I'm going to look to sell this, okay? Well, according to what we teach you, we actually are not in a downtrend. This is simply a pullback in an overall uptrend. This is a large pullback, but it's still a pullback. So what you want to do is look for buy setups, because this is a buying opportunity, not a selling one. Now, according to the course, we teach you what to look for, but to check your work once again, click on strategy number 9 in the green strategy tab level right here at the top of our platform. Click on signal arrows to check your work. And right at the very bottom, where most traders will be looking to sell, a buy signal has been generated. And you're in sync with the overall trend. And the stock went up 14 points in the next 2 to 3 weeks, okay, coming into this last week in June. Here's another example on BIDU. Okay, obviously we're in a downtrend, okay? Now, most traders would say, well, we're making lower highs, lower lows. That's the definition of a downtrend. So I want to stay short this. So you're all excited, it's going in your direction, and then this happens, right? Now, this is the way you like to determine whether you're in a downtrend or uptrend. If you break one of these so-called pivots here, well, then that's telling you that's a breakout, so we must be in an uptrend now. So you take your loss, you get out of your short position, you say, well, since we broke that little short-term top there, I guess I got to get long. So you decide to go long, and then you realize that this is just a pullback. This is not the beginning of an uptrend. This is just a shallow pullback in an overall downtrend. So to check your work, to see if you're in line with the strategy, you can click on signal arrows, and guess what? Where you thought we had broken out, strategy number 9 actually generated 2 sell signals. You could have taken either one you wanted. Ultimately, you had a 20-point gain, potentially you could have captured to the downside. This is why most traders fail, because they're out of sync with the trend. They think, well, we broke out, so that's got to be an uptrend, right? And in all actuality, it's just a small little bounce in an overall downtrend, which makes it perfect for a strategy number 9 sell signal. All right, here's a pullback as designated by strategy number 9. There's our buy signal right at the bottom. This is a very shallow pullback, only lasted about 2 or 3 bars, but potentially you could have captured 19 points in a little over a week. This, once again, was just a week or so ago in Peloton. Looking at DraftKings, this goes back a little further because we haven't got a lot of examples of downward movement because the market's been going straight up. But coming back into May, a month or so ago, we have a kind of a moderate pullback right here. The trend is going down. Here's a moderate pullback. Strategy number 9 generates a signal right at this high bar. You could have potentially captured 20 points. This is almost a textbook way of the way pullbacks work. Here's another example in Moderna. Okay, this is going back to just this past month in June, just a couple of weeks actually. The beginning of the trend was up, just like in that generic slide I showed you, and here is the large pullback. Now here's what we call a cluster of buy signals, because many times, especially with pullback strategies, they will generate a number of signals. For example, there's one buy right here, another one right here, and another one right here. Now, had you taken this very first signal, you may have been stopped out, depending on which stop placement you wanted to use. But if, let's say you're buying options and you don't mind buying multiple ones, well, these would have been a great place to buy right here because the stock went up 25 points coming into last week. Okay, not a bad little trade. All right, here's an example of a moderate pullback in VRTX, okay, Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Here's the pullback, actually starting right here. You have a sell signal, 28 points. Now, it took a couple of days, but ultimately it kicked in. And look at this gap down right here, okay? I always say this, and I know a lot of students get tired of me saying it, but remember, there was some news or something that came out that caused this stock to gap down 15, 20 points. Now, the first thing most new students say is like, well, how do you guys know this? How did you know it was going to gap down? And I always say, we don't. Remember, we're not in any way predicting how high or how low something will go. All we're trying to do is listen to the market. Now, the unfortunate thing is, we're all taught, myself included, that the way you listen to the market is by looking inwardly at the inner workings of the company, right? You're reading all the reports and looking at all the economic tools and listening to all the earnings reports. That's how you figure out what the market's doing, right? I know I did 44 years ago. That's the way I was trained. Unfortunately, students are still trained that way. And I'm here to tell you that it really doesn't work. There's no consistency in that. How many times have you seen a bad earnings report? It's so out of line with what you were estimating, and it goes straight up. Or the opposite. It's a great earnings report, and it goes straight down. Or you're waiting for news for Bitcoin or something, and it just goes the opposite direction. That's because all these things are too subjective. They're not based on black and white or very simple to follow rules. They're too subjective. One trader's support is another trader's resistance. So at Specialist Trading, we want to teach you things that are black and white, that are cut and dry. If we follow certain rules, the overall trend is down. We're not going to be a buyer. If certain requirements are met, a sell signal is generated. There's no ifs, ands, or buts where you have to think, well, is that a good earnings report or not? Is that a good jobless claims or not? Is that guy on TV really telling me what's going to happen, or maybe he's not that good? You see, you should never follow outside sources, which includes economic reports. If you want to, you are more than free to do that. We're never going to tell any student how to trade. We're just teaching you things that have stood the test of time. And trust me, as I always say, I stopped looking at that stuff 44 years ago. And if I'm still here, I'm living proof that you really don't need to follow it. Do not overcomplicate your trading. It's the easiest thing in the world to overcomplicate your trading. It's the most difficult thing in the world to simplify. But once you do, once you let go of all these things, that's when you start to become a consistent trader. So here, potentially, you could have made 28 points following this simple strategy. All right, here's a perfect example of a pullback. Once again, we have an established uptrend in place. We start to roll over. We have a shallow 3-day sell-off. All right, we did not hit any resistance. The institutions are not telling us to sell. All right, there is no Fibonacci resistance right here. This is a buy signal. This is all we're looking at. And had you taken that, potentially you could have captured 30 points in the next couple of weeks coming into this past week. Let's look at OKTA, all right? Let's look at the process here, because remember we talked about consistency? Consistency means an awareness that you will have losses from time to time. Now, this is a rather large pullback. A sell signal was generated right here, and look what happened. Now, if you traded using one of our very small stop levels, you most likely would have been stopped out and at most probably had a 5-point loss. Okay, not a lot, but still, it's a loss. Here's what we mean by consistency, because we give you the freedom to choose where to place your stop. Now, if you had taken just a moderate stop level, you would have remained in the trade, you would not have been stopped out, and potentially made that 28 points once again. So this is what we're talking about, consistency. And we want to put the power in your hands. You're going to determine whether you're winning or losing by your entries, by your stop placements, and by your exits. Here's another example, CHTR. Okay, let's look at the process again. We're in an uptrend. Now, most traders would say, oh, wow, we broke down, so we've got to sell. No, this is not a downtrend. It is simply a pullback, because what we teach you in the course is how to identify what the overall trend is. And the overall trend is still up. So now, according to the rules of the strategy, you think you've spotted a strategy number 9 signal. In order to check your work, simply click it on. Click on signal arrows, and yes, you properly identified a buy signal right at the bottom here. Now, this was at the beginning of this month, just about 3 or so weeks ago. Had you purchased that, by the end of this month, potentially you could have captured 45 points, okay? Remember, I like to show and teach you things that are recent. This just happened this month. This is not something that happened 5 years ago, something you could have taken advantage of. Now, we're not saying you would have made 45 points. Some of our students who took this signal, who are already members of the Strategy Number 9 course, maybe got out with a 5-point gain. Some maybe got out with a 10 or 12-point gain. It's entirely up to you. The point is, you have to be in charge of the decision-making process, not us. We're supplying you with this information, but it's up to you to decide which one you want to take. And it's really simple. It's a lot simpler than trying to figure out economic earnings or trying to figure out, what someone says in a chat room and you have no idea what they're talking about. It's very, very simple. Here's another example in Tesla. This just happened last month, coming into June. All right. Obviously, we're in an uptrend, but this is actually a pullback. So this is just a bounce in an overall downtrend. So it's a small uptrend, or what we call a counter trend, in an overall downtrend. You think there are some sell signals generated here, so you click on strategy number 9 once again, click on signal arrows, and check your work. You're learning how to properly identify on your own for the very first time. You didn't have to go to a trading room. You didn't have to read some blog every morning. You didn't have to see the guys on TV. You're learning how to make these decisions on your own. So you had 3 chances to go short Tesla. This is at the beginning of June. And in 3 days, you could have potentially captured 52 points. Okay? Now, let's look at some other markets and time frames. Because, as we said earlier, this can be applied to any market and any time frame. Here's a 30-minute chart of Microsoft. Okay, if you're an intraday trader, you like to intraday trade stocks, here's once again that consistency. Now, a sell signal was generated right here, and as you can see, the next hour or so, the stock went up. Now, if you used one of our shallow stop placements, most likely you would have been stopped out. But if you used a moderate one, you would still been in and potentially been able to capture 7 points in a couple of days. But here's the good news. Let's say you got stopped out. Well, you could have easily taken the next signal right here a day or so later and potentially made back what you lost. Okay, that's what we mean by consistent. Now that's a 30-minute chart to the downside in Microsoft. All right, this was at the beginning of June. Let's look at the same stock, but now let's look at a weekly time frame. Okay, what do we have here? An established trend, a pullback, a moderate pullback in an overall uptrend, a buy signal in May, and look at 23 potential points coming into mid-June. Okay, so remember, keep trading simple. There is absolutely no reason why you have to look at an overall time frame at a higher level to find out what to do on the lower level. So many students of mine say, well, Steve, how come you never talk about what the higher time frame does? Don't we have to be in sync with that? My quick answer is no. There's absolutely no reason to look at 2 time frames. I know that's something we were all taught. I was taught that 4 decades ago, and I have personally found no consistency in using that method. None whatsoever. So I always tell my students, listen, once again, if you're, hooked to that method and you want to use it, go ahead. But we don't teach that. All we teach is trade the signal that was generated on the time frame of the chart you're looking at. So if you're looking at a 30-minute time frame, that's all you care about. I don't care what the hourly is doing. I don't care what the daily is doing. If you're looking at a weekly chart, who cares what the monthly is doing or the yearly is doing? Just trade the time frame that you're looking at and that the signal was generated on. Now, that was a weekly chart of Microsoft. Let's look at a weekly chart of Northrop Grumman. Same thing here. Downtrend. We have a large pullback to the upside. 2 sell signals were generated. 55 points coming into this year. Now, this is going back a lot because this is a weekly time frame. And we haven't had, once again, a lot of sell signals as of late. Now, here's a 30-minute chart of the E-mini futures. This was just last Friday, okay, on the 25th. So just about 3 or 4 days ago. Nice upward trend, followed by a moderate pullback. 2 buy signals were generated, and in the day, you could have potentially made 20 points. That's $1,000 per contract, okay? If you had 10, you know what that is. That's a nice little profit you have for the day. But remember, some of our students took this and made a point and said, thank you, and I'm out after I made a point. It's entirely up to you how you want to trade. Here's a 4-hour chart of the Australian dollar. Once again, a couple of weeks ago, here we have a downtrend, followed by a very shallow pullback to the upside on this 4-hour chart. A sell signal was generated right at the top, and potentially in the next 2 or 3 days, you could have potentially captured over 200 pips. That's over $2,000 per unit. That's in the Australian dollar. So we've just showed you weekly charts. We've showed you 30-minute charts of the futures. I just showed you a 4-hour chart of the Australian dollar of currency pairs. Remember, the beauty of strategy number 9 is you can apply it to any market, any time frame, and in any direction. So let's review. A pullback is either a large, moderate, or shallow sell-off, but in an overall uptrend. Or it's a large, moderate, or shallow rally or bounce in an overall downtrend. That's all it is. Remember, going back to the highlights, this is a buy low, sell high pullback strategy. It does this by using proprietary indicators, very simple indicators, and their relationship to one another. You can apply it to any market, any time frame, any direction. If you're an option trader, strategy number 9 is ideal for option timing because you're buying at lower levels and selling at short at higher levels. So the premiums won't be as expensive as buying them when they break out. If you decide to become a student of mine in the strategy number 9 course, remember, it is not just a suggestion, it's a requirement that everyone paper trades first. We are first and foremost an educational company, and that's the only way you can really educate yourself, by paper trading. Our edge here is consistency. I showed you a number of examples where there were losses, but usually on the very next setup, you were able to recoup those losses. This is a very highly consistent pullback method. So before you ask me questions, I'd like to ask you one and answer honestly. Do you think this pullback strategy can help your trading for the remainder of 2021? Starting tomorrow, we're going into the second half of the year. Can you believe it? We're already halfway through. Ask yourself, how's your trading going? Are you getting the type of results you promised yourself you would get this year just 6 months ago? Most likely, you're not even close, right? Trust me, I know what that's like. I struggled myself for 2 years. Every year I thought this one's going to be better than the last one, and it just never got there. Why not take advantage of a great offer I have for all of you? This is a great offer for all of you attending today. We're going to give you a good discount on strategy number 9. And we're also going to include a bonus of a full year of the PTS Primo charts. So we've made it simple for you. Everything is right there on the platform, and you're going to get the full rules to the strategy. All right, a detailed video course instruction comes along with all the entries, exits, and stop placement, the full course rules. And remember, this is a full year of the PTS Primo Charting Platform. That's a over $1,700 value, absolutely free. But let me tell you one of the best things about our platform. And this is, I've said before in our webinars, this is a pet peeve of mine, and that's the scanning process. As I said earlier, I have literally used just about all of the major platforms. And one of the most, hair pulling out things of mine is the scanning process. The scannings are just so difficult and they're so complicated. Sometimes I just give up. I can't figure out how to scan for a certain setup. And sometimes I can't even figure out the market I want to scan. I'm happy to say that we, Pro Trader Strategies and myself, developed the platform specifically with the scanners to be easy. I mean, most of our scans take less than a minute to do per night. And it's just with a couple of quick clicks on your mouse, you can scan for whatever market you want. We have data for European, Asian markets, also for Bitcoin, for currency pairs, futures, stocks, ETFs, indices like the NASDAQ, S&P 500. Just pick whatever one you're interested in and then click scan. That's how simple it is, okay? Now, let's say you had become a student of mine just a couple of weeks ago and decided to use the scanner. You learned all the rules, you paper traded for a couple of weeks, you said, you know what, I'm going to start trading. Remember, let's go through the process here, but just to show you how pullback trades work. Now, you were looking at NTLA, okay? And you're saying to yourself, okay, we're in an overall uptrend. And this is stage 1. This is the beginning of the trend, which we taught you and which we teach you more in detail in the course. Then stage 2 happens, where most traders say, hey, we just topped out. You know, that $10,000 course I took says that's where the institutions are selling, so I don't want to be a buyer here. This is a sell-off. Now you taking our course say, this is not a sell-off. This is a buying opportunity. This is the pullback. As soon as these two indicators meet the requirements and match up with their relationship to one another, a buy signal will be generated, okay? Now let's say you scanned for this buy signal, and right there on the night of the 18th, you would have scanned and seen that there was a buy signal in this stock. Now you could have, the next day, purchased the calls. You could have purchased some type of spread strategy with a bias to the upside. You could have actually purchased the stock, or if you wanted to, 5 minutes before the close of the 18th, you could have gone through a scan and seen that a buy signal was generated because most likely the setup was in place. So either way, you took advantage of this and went long. Look what happened. Stage 3, the resumption of the trend. Now, I took this snapshot over the weekend when I was putting this course together with the slides. At that point, that was a quick 13-point gain in 1 week. Well, guess what? I looked at the charts earlier this week, and I didn't have time because I'm teaching, I'm answering emails, and I'm also putting together other presentations. And guess what? Monday, Tuesday, and today, the stock has gained 100 points plus in the last 3 days. So it's 100 points higher than what you're seeing right here. This is the beauty of this strategy. Remember, I told you, I've gone to webinars before where they show examples like this, and then you look at the date and it was back to 2015 or something. This just happened this past week. So you could have taken advantage of this if you had become a student of ours just a couple of weeks ago. But don't worry, there are setups being generated all the time, whether buy setups, sell setups. That's the beauty of strategy number 9, okay? So remember, if you don't take advantage of this great offer, a year from today, you're going to kick yourself. You're going to wish you had become a member of the strategy number 9 course. Take advantage of this great offer I'm going to present right now, okay? Now, normally, here's what all of this would cost you. Strategy number 9, along with 1 full year of the platform. It would cost you over $4,700. That's a lot. We realize you've spent tons of money on other things that just have not worked, and you're kind of short on funds. Maybe your trading is going terribly and you're losing more and more money. So we're going to give you a great discount. In fact, we're going to discount this down to $29.95. That's a savings of over $1,700 and a 35% discount. But we're also going to include payment plans. So if $29.95 is still too difficult, you can still be up and running as early as today by just coming up with a small deposit and then establishing a payment plan. So you can already be learning the rules to strategy number 9 this afternoon. That's why we want to make it simple for you. Now, obviously, if you do have $29.95 and you just say, hey, listen, I don't want a payment, I just want to purchase it right now and get a full year of the platform, well, by all means, you can sign up with the $29.95 and it's yours. But once again, we realize it may be difficult for some patrons, so don't worry about it. For a small down payment, you can still be up and running as early as today. And you can be just making monthly payments. Here's how to do this. Contact my sister site, Pro Trader Strategies. We developed the platform together. They're in charge of all of the course pricing as well as discounts. They would be happy to work with you. They're very easy to work with, and they're very flexible in terms of price. I would suggest giving them a call at area code 310-598-6677. They have trading consultants at the phones right now. Be happy to answer any question. And remember, they're not going to try and sell you anything. They're just there to give you information. If you would like to sign up, they'll be happy to take your order. But if you want to ask them about what it would take to establish a payment plan, they would be more than happy to give you an estimate, okay? Now, the link you see at the very bottom is the link that will take you to the info page about strategy number 9 and this great offer. But it's not a live link. We have posted a live link on the chat box in the GoToWebinar column on the far right. So if you are opening that up right now, just click that on. And you'll be able to see that, click that on, you go right up to the info page, all right? Now, I promised you I would put this information up here and then answer any questions. So if you have any questions, now's the time. Just go to your question and answer and type in whatever question you have, and I'd be happy to answer it, okay? Okay, see, there's a question. Can you put high probability into a percentage? And can the PTS platform be used with a cell phone or tablet? Well, we can't put it into a percentage. What we really mean by high probability is really by the testimonials and by what our students around the world have told us, because we have students in over 115 countries and in every state in the United States. And, we get the same feedback. It's like, well, these, signals, although not all of them are winners, they have a certain high probability where I really am doing well now. For the very first time, we're getting a lot of these testimonials where students will say, I've been trading for 10 years and haven't made a dime yet. And the first time I use your information or your strategies are the first time I started to become consistent. So that's what we mean by high probability. In order for it to be put into some type of percentage, that means we would have to rely on everyone trading the exact same way, trading the exact same market, the exact same time frame, and taking the exact same entry point, the exact same exit point, and stop placement. And that goes against everything we teach. So I'm sorry, we can't put it in terms of statistics. Now, in terms of the platform being used, I believe the best place to get that question answered is through Pro Trader Strategies. Since they're in charge of all tech support, I mean, I use it just on my desktop, but I believe there are ways to use it on a tablet and a cell phone, but I would really ask them. Remember, there's no obligation. They would be more than happy to answer your question, and I just want you to get the correct answer. I would hate to say no, and then all of a sudden I'll get an email or a phone call from Pro Trader Strategies, and they'll say, no, that's not true, Steve. We do have that capability. So I just want you to get the correct answer. So I would contact Pro Trader Strategies. Either send them an email, or the best way, as I said earlier, is to contact them via the phone number, 310-598-6677. They can answer your question outright, okay? Okay, good question. Someone is asking me, how long would this offer last? Well, usually, once again, that's up to Pro Trader Strategies. Usually, unless it says otherwise, because they give you this information right before I give the presentation, they'll usually have it last for no more than a week, because then by next week, I will be giving a presentation on an entirely different method of mine and an entirely different price, an entirely different discount. So usually this is for a week. The good news is you're all going to be getting a link to this recording right after we finish today. And so you can watch this at your own leisure and decide for yourself. But I wouldn't sit on this if you really, so many times I've said this before, students will say, I decided to continue using my strategy and my method for the next month. And guess what? I lost even more money. So after a month or two, I looked at your video again and I said, you know what? I want to take advantage of that. And so they'll call up Pro Trader Strategies asking for that $29.95 offer, and then also want to establish a payment plan. And usually that's over. That's done with. It's back to the $4,700 or so. So if you're really serious, there is a sense of urgency. You've got to take advantage of these, because we're trying to give you a really nice discount, and especially, make it easy for you with a payment plan so that you can be up and running as soon as possible. Okay, so as you've seen through the examples I shared with you, this is a great strategy. Now, there will be losses, but you saw all of the really nice winning trades that happened within this last month, even within this last week. So take advantage of this if you really want to turn your trading around. The good news is I'll be there with you every step of the way. Every student of mine gets my personal email address. I've been answering emails this morning. I will answer them later on today. And so if you have a question, you can always contact me via email. Okay, I know a lot of other websites say, oh yeah, sure, you can always contact us too, but usually what happens is that you go right to an intern or to someone at tech support, and it's not coming from me, it's coming from someone else. All of the questions will come directly to me, and I could answer them for you, okay? And I usually do. You get my personal email address, and you see it's coming from me when you get the answer. Okay, good questions. Any more? As we close here, I just want to say I hope you learned something about the platform as well as the pullback process. It is an entirely different from a different way to trade. I personally, I usually don't divulge this, but I am a pullback trader. It's taken me a while to figure this out, but I really am a pullback trader. It fits more with my personality. And you can apply pullback trading to any time frame, any market. So think about it, watch the video, but if you really are interested in taking your trading to the next level with this pullback method, contact Pro Trader Strategies to get this great discounted offer, okay? Now, as we take one last look at our disclaimer, just want to say thanks once again for taking time out of your Wednesday. I know it's difficult. A lot of you want to trade or have options for looking at other webinars. I want to say thank you for taking the time out, and most especially, I really look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the Strategy Number 9 course. Have a great day. I hope you are very successful, and I hope to see you in class. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.